Okay, in this video lesson, we're going to be taking a look at adding and subtracting polynomials. First of all, let's take a look at some definitions here. Here you see the word term, okay? Term represents kind of these groupings of numbers and or variables that are separated by a plus sign or a subtraction sign, okay? So here you can see we have three different terms, 4x y squared plus 3x minus 5. Now, it's important to understand like terms. So you can see in this example that negative 5x and 2x are like terms. The reason they're like terms is because they have the same variable to the same power, all right? Or they have the same exponent. Now, you don't see an exponent here, but it's actually 1. We don't write the 1, but you can see that they both have the same variable and the same exponent. We call those like terms. That means we're going to be able to combine those like terms. And then coefficient refers to the number in front of the variable or the number that's being multiplied times the variable, such as 4x. 4 is the coefficient. And of course, x is the variable. All right. So, and then let's take a look a little bit more maybe at some definitions here. You can see here that we have a monomial. This just describes one term, all right? A binomial, you have these two terms separated between a plus sign, or it could be a minus sign. And then, of course, trinomial means three terms. And then polynomials is, you know, in any of these terms, but when there's more than three terms, we just classify it as a specific type of polynomial, all right? So in this lesson, we are going to be adding polynomials by combining like terms. And let's keep in mind, we are basically simplifying. We're not solving, okay? This is not an equation that we're solving. We're simply taking a bunch of terms and we're combining them, okay? If we're going to add, now these are separated with a parentheses for these three terms plus these three terms. This is just grouping. All right, so let's take a look at this first example. Here we have, in this first grouping, we have 2a to the third plus 6a squared minus 3 plus 5a to the third, or 5a cubed minus 8a squared plus 5. Okay, so let me go ahead and write all these together without the grouping. So be sure you understand this plus sign means we're going to be adding each one of these individual terms. Now, inside here, this is a minus 8a squared. So we're going to be adding a negative 8a squared, which we could just write as minus a. So let me work through that. So again, our first term here, let me just go and rewrite these. So we have 2a to the third plus 6a squared minus 3. Now we have our plus, and then we have a 5a to the third. So I'm going to go ahead and write plus 5a to the third. And then here we have plus a minus 8a squared, or we could call it a negative 8a squared. So plus minus, we're simply going to write that as minus 8a squared. And then again, this plus sign is we're going to add the 5 as well, and it's already a positive. So plus positive 5 doesn't really change, so it's plus 5. So you'll see when you're adding these polynomials and they're grouped like that, when there's a plus sign here, it doesn't really change any of these terms. It was a 5a cubed and a minus 8a squared and a plus 5. You see that here. But now, we're going to simplify all this by combining like terms. So let's think about what our like terms are. Any of the variables that have the same exponent. So I see an a to the third here and an a to the third here. So those are going to be like terms. So we have a 2a cubed and a positive 5a cubed to the third. Now we also have some a squared. So we have a 6a squared and a minus 8a squared. And then finally this last one here, or we have the minus 3 and the plus 5. So we're going to combine those exactly as they tell us that it says. So we have 2a cubed plus 5a cubed. Well, when you add those, you're going to get 7a to the third. All right, and then let's take a look at our 6a squared and our minus 8a squared. Well, when you combine the 6a squared and the minus 8a squared, you actually get minus 2a squared. And then last here, you have the negative 3 and the plus 5, or we could say 5 minus 3, but we end up with a plus 2, so plus 2. So now you see that we have these three terms. They all have a different exponent over that variable, so we no longer have like terms, so we have simplified this polynomial. And that is that would be our simplified answer. Now I want to take a look at this subtraction problem. So I'm going to zoom in here on example 4. So you can see our grouping here of this polynomial minus this polynomial. So this minus is going to change things up a little bit. We're actually going to be distributing the subtraction sign, this subtraction, to all three of these terms because we're subtracting all of these three terms from this grouping of terms as well. So let me show you how that works. We're going to write out these three that we have to begin with. So 2a to the third plus 6a squared minus 3. Now we have a minus 5a to the third. So we're going to write it just like we see it, minus 5a to the third. Well, now we have minus a negative 8a squared. So minus a negative is going to become plus a positive. Remember, we can always add the opposite. So we're going to change the sign, but we're going to have to change both of them. So plus a positive 8a squared. So I'm going to write plus 8a squared. Then again, we have another minus, or we're still subtracting this last term, but that's minus and a positive 5, so it's not really going to change anything. So minus 5, and we just write that just as we read it, minus 5. Okay, so now what we have done is we have distributed this minus sign to all three of these terms, and now it's written out with all the separate terms, and there's not any grouping. We just need to look for like terms. We have a 2a to the third here, and we have a minus 5a to the third here, so those are like terms. Then we also have a plus 6a squared and a plus 8a squared. And then finally we have our minus 3 and our minus 5. So we need to combine all of that. When we do so, when we combine the 2a to the third minus 5a to the third, we actually end up with a negative 3a to the third. And then when we combine 6a squared with 8a squared, we actually end up with a 14a squared. And then finally, this last one here, when we combine the negative 3 and the negative 5, when we add those, we actually have negative, actually that's a negative 3 and negative 5 is negative 8, sorry. All right, so now we've taken all those terms and we've simplified it down to this polynomial. So we're not solving it, we're just simplifying it. So that's two examples of adding polynomials. One was addition, one was subtraction. Hope this video helps.